Hello, in this programming video, I am going to show you visibility modifiers in classes and objects. So we are building on top of the previous videos that we've done in the classes and objects part of the series. I recommend checking those out first. Okay, so what's a visibility modifier? So you know how we have these functions and we have these variables. They have basically a visibility range. And there's four ranges. And the four ranges are private, there's protected, there's internal, and then there's public. So what this means is, and I'll show you how to set them as well. If your variables or your function private, that means it can only be used within this class. You cannot call it outside of the class or from a child class. I'm going to be covering child classes in the inheritance part of this, series, which is very soon. And then internal, basically any client inside this module who sees the declaring class, sees its internal members, and public, anyone can see it. So child classes can see it, this class can access it, and the objects can access it as well. So let me show you. So if I make this one private, so you just put the keyword private in front of it, and that's the same with functions as well. I'm just going to demonstrate it for variables, but you can do it for pretty much anything. As an extra task, I recommend experimenting with the others. So I'll do public. And like the others, I'll be explaining more when we get on to what's it called, inheritance. So what's this saying? This saying redundant visibility modifier. So that's very interesting. And if we scroll down, and if I were to try and do, as you can see, we're able to print out model and print out max speed, as we normally were. So the reason it's saying redundant, because by default, your parameters of your class are set to public, meaning they can be accessed anywhere. But what happens if I try and do a print line here, print line, and I'll get one of the car objects, and I'll do .current. As you can see, it doesn't even come up. It says cannot access current speed, it is private in car. That means we cannot access it outside of this class. It can only be accessed within inside. You might be thinking, okay, one, how would he get hold of it? And two, why would he do this? The way you would get hold of it is using a getter method, and we've got setters, and the get method, instead of taking a variable in, it just returns that variable out. So let me just quickly demonstrate that. So fun get current speed, and we would do return return current speed. What's it missing? This one is missing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now if we want to actually get it, we do get current speed, and now if we run it, that gets the current speed. Okay, so that solves that. Again, my thinking is that even necessary? Isn't that a bit cumbersome? So print the LT as 0, so that's the current speed. And the main reason you do this is for protection purposes, because when you're on a larger project, you have multiple developers. You don't want somebody to accidentally be able to do like car1.current speed and modify the value. If you have to have setter methods for setting the current speed, if they provide a value that's invalid, so for example, maybe the current speed has a range between 0 and the max speed, but if you try and set it here, you could just directly set it. Whereas if it's setting set current speed, we could do a little check saying if speed is greater than or equal to 0, and if speed is less than or equal to max speed. What's this? Yeah, that's fine. And only then will we actually assign it if it's basically within this range. What's this mode about? No, it's double amps. I don't know what's happening now. I forgot there's a range check that you can do, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so what we've done now is when we're setting it via the setter method, we're basically checking if it's a valid range. Maybe it's a bit more even complex than that, and they're taking some data and it needs to be manipulated somewhere. So not just some sort of condition needs to be checked, but it needs to be manipulated. Only then it gets assigned. So that's the beauty of making stuff private. It prevents accidental modification. It forces you to use getters and setters if you want to access the value for read or write purposes, and therefore you can add conditions to prevent any mistakes from occurring. So I recommend making all things private. For testing purposes, public is alright, but I would say private, it'll save you a lot of hassle down the road. So that's it really for visibility modifiers. Like I said, on the cover protected in the inheritance part. Feel free to check that out. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.